Thank you for joining Dr. James, Rini, and I, the Curiosity Conduit, for a look behind the curtain of Letting Destiny Deliver. Dr. Rini is an author and has 47 years of experience as a practicing psychotherapist who brings profound insight into the dimensions of consciousness. I bring my own lens as a retired law enforcement officer, now immersed in the study of psychology. Together, we invite you into a dialogue where destiny meets awareness and curiosity leads the way. Today, we will discuss the multidimensional nature of meaning within the fantasy zone. This conversation may lead to feelings of inspiration and curiosity, and it could also create some inner movement. That's all welcome. Life will reveal your destiny through all opportunities you keep yourself available for. So allow yourself to stay open and let's see what destiny delivers. Going into the first quote, it says, fantasies are a rich source of creativity and intuition that exists on both a conscious and unconscious level. Because fantasy exists on these two levels, it is multidimensional. And I attached to this the second pathway, which is awareness of conscious and unconscious minds. Being able to have that awareness will help you understand this portion of it. Is that correct? Or would it be a different pathway, you would think?
No, we would fall into that path. So I'll give you an example of what that quote is trying to illustrate. I don't know if you ever have had a dream where you're dreaming something and something in real life has taken place, and that you hear what has taken place in real life and it then becomes part of your dream. I'll give you an example. I lived in an apartment and I was dreaming that I was at Kennedy Space Center watching a launch. And at the same time that there was a launch, they were using a jackhammer next door, so I was hearing the roaring sound of the jackhammer, then became the sound of the rocket. Okay, but in the dream, I didn't know that's where the sound was coming from. So the unconscious interprets the sound based on its fantasy, where my conscious mind would interpret what's happening based on its fantasy. Okay, one's based on reality that yes, somebody's using a jackhammer. The other one is, oh, that nicely fits what you're watching happen right now. Like another time I was playing a pinball machine in a dream, and in real life the alarm went off. But in the dream I interpreted that as I had tilted the machine, because that fit in the context of what I was fantasizing, the dream, unconsciously.
Can you give an example that does not involve a dream?
Well, jokes, again, they're multi-dimensional, because you throw a punchline, and when that punchline is thrown, you hear that statement on multi-dimensions of meaning, of which surprise your conscious mind because you weren't expecting it, and that's what makes it funny, is the conscious mind wasn't expecting it. But it has to have that unconscious meaning too for it to be funny, because if it doesn't, then the person doesn't get the joke, you see. And that's what happens with people that don't get the joke. They don't have an unconscious meaning that they can attribute to that, which gives it a whole other meaning. That's what kind of, what makes it hard for people who speak foreign languages to really understand the nuances of English, because being a native to the language, these nuances are these unspoken meanings, which are unconscious. Fantasy allows us to manipulate reality and meaning. If you are serious about taking personal control of your life and mind, you must have a healthy relationship of how the conscious and unconscious mind bifurcate meaning. And that's what I'm talking about. Things have two meanings at the same time in terms of they're being bifurcated. That pillow sitting over there can be as, something you see as comforting. It can also be used as a murder weapon to suffocate somebody. Okay, which meaning...
As I'm taking a double take, we got murder weapons in here, I guess. Okay.
Right, but you don't see that usually, but it's true. You could suffocate somebody with that pillow. I mean, it's not an original idea, is it? But we don't look at it as a murder weapon. That's my point.
Right.
Okay, but it doesn't mean that it cannot be used for that.
Sure.
Now we can do the opposite. We can take something very benign and see it as being used against us. That's what paranoia is, when something isn't a threat, but we perceive it as a threat.
Yes.
Okay, so how meaning is bifurcated is that, oh yeah, they do that in politics. It's how you spin something as to what it means. We do that every day in our everyday life. People always have a reason as to why they do things.
So the pathway that I attached to this was the fifth pathway, and it had to do with, which has to do with avoid denying, disowning, or repressing important parts of the self. I just kind of put in parentheses here self-sabotage in there. Would this apply to that as well?
It would apply because part of it is fantasy. Again, is just thinking. People tend to think that word when they're actively wanting to fantasize, but no, it's all thought. So if you're denying, disowning, or repressing parts of yourself, then you are not allowing that to come to reality, and you can't name it, you can't tame it.
Yeah, and I was really looking at this for individuals who deny parts of their, I guess, I don't know if this is even possible, like denying parts of the conscious mind and just staying more unconscious, like just, I don't know, staying more fantasy like, not,
Yeah, it can go either way.
yeah,
Yes.
and causing troubles for themselves by kind of being in this fantasy land, if you will, without really checking yourself, being the, what was it, the information police. They're just owning that part if they don't like it and they only want to hear certain things that they want to hear. Is that profit or is that no?
No, that unfortunately is very common. But the thing about it is, denial is very hard to penetrate. It's easy maybe for somebody else to see, but the person in denial is denying that. So they truly have a mindset that it creates a huge blind spot
Yes.
because it's impossible to convince them that they're in denial.
Yes.
It's how powerful a mindset. It's how powerful fantasy is. What we focus on here is on the mind and how the mind works and how the personality works. We're focusing on psychology, whereas what I think is out there that's mainstream is more focus on diagnosing and how to how to react to these people, how to behave around them, what to do and what not to do. It's more of an instruction manual than it is really teaching psychology. Looks like it's teaching psychology, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be taught, but teaching psychology is really understanding how the mind works. Psych is mind, ology is study, okay, as opposed to, the aforementioned, what is most common. And this is, what we're doing, how this is different from what I see being much more mainstream out there. It's more people are given instructions as to what to do and what not to do and the signs of this and the signs of that, which again has a place, but it's not psychology in that it's teaching you how the mind works. It's a lot to take in. I mean, I understand that, but a lot of it is just learning a lot more about your unconscious because it's that which is so invisible to most everyone, but it's omnipresent. It's like air, it's invisible, but it's omnipresent. And you don't think about air when you don't need it. So you really don't think about it that much. But when you need it, you think about it. And I'm thinking it's like, when people need God, that's when they pray, because that's when you need him. But that's kind of how I'm saying. That's what people kind of turn to the unconscious, because I'm using those synonymously here. And it is the most undertaught discovery that science has made that would have such a profound impact on people's lives. It just has. I can speak for someone who's had that mind for over 55 years, and technically speaking, that is what really creates psychological imbalance, is the fact that we're blind to this very important, very huge part of ourselves. And it doesn't go away, it just works invisibly. But we always ask why, you see. But since it's invisible to people, they can't ever really figure out. Rigid thinking and prejudice negatively affect the fantasy zone. This happens because rigid thinking and prejudice force us to assign the same meaning to different situations. So we're imposing the meaning there rather than discerning the meaning. But with rigid thinking and prejudice, it's a form of denial because we don't believe it's rigid thinking or prejudice.
Okay, so it would be the fifth and sixth pathway here.
Yes,
Okay.
most definitely.
All right, so we already talked about the fifth, the sixth pathways, avoid mindsets and limiting beliefs that create blind spots. Also avoid denying or disowning, which is under the fifth pathway.
Well, in this sense, when you're a lot of rigid thinking and prejudice thinking is really repressing a part of oneself that oneself doesn't like. And then you're projecting it onto other people. So in repressing it and disowning it, it gets more powerful because it's being denied and disowned and projected. So it fuels itself, is what I'm saying, because that's something, you can put what we deny or disown or repress on a continuum from minimal to major. And with rigid thinking and prejudice, it really then impacts the ability of the self to function at all.
Can you give an example of this in a relationship?
Maybe a common one is I'm in a relationship with someone that I'm so in love with that I think everybody else wants them to. And because I'm insecure, I therefore am always monitoring or accompanying you to whatever you do and try to draw the line at what things are acceptable and when things are not acceptable. So because of my prejudice that everybody else is going to want you and you're going to let them want you, I create this rigid thinking where I cannot trust you and let you out of my sight.
Which is damaging in a relationship, can be.
I don't know how it's not.
Okay, so then you agree. Okay, yes.
Um,
It is, but this is something that a lot of people, I mean, I definitely felt this in my life, feeling insecure, super jealous, thinking people potentially either were cheating or not. And this also creates that behavior that can attract very toxic individuals to where you feel more secure, but they might be doing something not good.
Well, it's probably more likely to attract toxic.
Right. I love how I'm getting into this next quote really assists with not just what to avoid, but actions that help with this. The multidimensional nature of meaning makes it easy to come up with a variety of meanings in any given situation. This variety can make for fun and inspiration, or it can create strain, misunderstanding, and confusion. So, the pathway that I attach to that is action that gives and earns love and respect.
Yes, it definitely fits under that pathway.
And it's kind of one of the answers as we go through these to help a person navigate. I mean, I know many people, we're talking about relationships, you talk about a probably, well, I guess you didn't really say in a intimate relationship, but it could be friendships, any types of relationships, right? Where this comes into play, where there's misunderstanding, confusion, and strain. What do you have to say about this?
Well, what came to mind was this couple that I worked with. And the meaning that the wife had to deal with was thinking that her husband wanted to be with every attractive woman that came within his view, even to the point with watching TV, because she would accuse him of wanting whoever it is that they're seeing on TV. Now, that's an example where assigning the same meaning over and over again because of this mindset can create strain and misunderstanding, confusion, and in this case, obviously divorce, because anything and everything that could be a threat to her, even the television and what was being watched, became a point of contention. And really what you want to do, and which is important psychologically for good attachment, good connection, is to really see that person who they really are, rather than mischaracterization coming out of a place of fear that you then place on that person. But you have to learn from that person. You have to learn the meaning of who they are from that person. Most people, impose meaning on that person.
Well, to be able to allow them to be who they are.
And by allowing, you have to create a safe space for them
Yes,
to be.
absolutely. Safe space, supportive. I
And
guess
to
that
feel
goes.
safe, you have to feel heard. If I don't feel heard, I'm not going to feel safe. What's the point of telling you anything more if you're not hearing what I'm saying? And you can't tell me you're hearing me if I don't think you're hearing me. They're not hearing me, because people will say, well, I do understand, when the person who needs the understanding needs to feel they're being understood. I'm told that they're being understood.
Yes. So until the other person feels that they were understood,
seen,
understood, then they are not. Is that correct?
It has not been communicated to them that they had been.
Because it is your perception, and that's what matters in that.
Well, I don't want to use the word perception. It is.
Oh, it is fact. It's not perception. You're right. It's fact. Because what you're feeling.
You got a bunch of keys on a key ring. You got to find which key unlocks the door. It's not a matter of perception. It's a matter of, searching for that right key that unlocks the door. Now, hopefully you can discern that key from all the others so you don't have to do that every time.
That's why you just gotta get those keys that are, like marked differently.
Mine is what order they are, what keys next to them.
Oh.
That's how I know.
Okay.
Which is what.
You don't have like colorful keys or nothing on them.
No, I'm too lazy for that.
Not one that's like a UF key or something.
Well,
or
UTF. Those their relationship to which one's beside which one.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. So is there anything else you want to say on this?
Not in the moment.
Not in the moment. Okay, let's move on. Because the ego plays such a dominant role in the flow of information between the conscious and unconscious mind and between the inner and outer worlds, it must be properly organized. I really love that part. It must be properly organized. Okay. This is central because more than anything else, ego and fantasy determine whether we achieve self-health or self-sabotage. So I attached the 10th pathway, which it's action that validates your commitment to balancing opposing forces. And the way I'm looking at it, those opposing forces has everything to do with how you're organizing things within the conscious and unconscious mind as well.
Yes, very true.
But when you're talking about it must be properly organized, what do you mean there?
Well, what comes to mind is a quote from Carl Jung in his autobiography. He goes, "People say I am wise or a sage. I cannot accept that." He goes, "All I did was dip my hat into the stream. But in order to dip your hat into the stream, you have to stoop a little. Most people aren't willing to stoop, you see." So what he's saying is the ego has to let go of the need to take ownership of what they self is capable of doing. It's like the boss who takes credit but for what the manager came up with. The ego wants to take credit for everything. So by stooping a little, you dip your hat in the stream, you got to stoop a little bit. And so what that means is you have to allow your ego to be grateful for what you are being able to manifest rather than seeing it as making you greater than other people. On the other hand, you don't want it to deflate you either, that you're less than other people, especially if you are working towards being a better person. So that's kind of a way to look at how the ego is organized.
I still see the teeter-totter.
The two extremes are to inflate or to deflate, neither of which are in balance. It's the ability to make use of both.
Is there anything else that you can think of on this?
I don't have anything.
Nothing?
No.
You're positive?
At the moment, yes.
Okay. Thank you for joining Dr. Rini and I on this journey behind the curtain of letting destiny deliver. Join us next time as we start Chapter 7, The Toxic and the Nurturing. Remember to subscribe and like, and questions or comments are welcome below. Now ask yourself, what part of your life might destiny be trying to speak through right now? Keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, destiny isn't something you chase. It's something you allow. Until next time, be well.